Hey there, tubers. Today's video is going to be on checking and possibly replacing the glow plugs on this Link-Belt 210LX track hoe. Now, this track hoe's got about 9,000 hours on it, and the glow plugs have never been replaced. And I noticed this spring that I had at least one, maybe two cylinders that on startup when it was cold out weren't firing properly. So I'm thinking that maybe, I know at least one glow plug, maybe more than one, are probably out. So I'm going to show how to test that and replace them if need be. So I'll climb up on top there and open the engine compartment up and see you in a second. Alright, I made it upstairs here. And this is a Isuzu BB-6BG1T engine. And this thing has been just a fantastic engine for me. I mean, not that you can really tell with this lighting and stuff, but it's got 9,000 hours on it and there's not a leak or anything in it. It doesn't use any oil. It's just been a fantastic engine. I like Isuzu engines, but this one I had zero issues with, knock on wood. Now what I'm going to do is, right here are your glow plugs, and this bar here is your power strip that connects all of them together. So you've got your power coming in right here, and it follows this strip so that they all get power at the same time. So I'll disconnect these nuts here, and this is a two-piece strip. I'll pull the strip out and then I'll test them in place. That's not the most accurate way of testing them, but I think we'll be able to see if there's good or bad in place by checking the ohms on them. So I'll grab some tools, we'll get these nuts off, get that strip off, and then I'll get the multimeter out and start checking them. Be right back. Alright, so the nice part about these are they're slotted, so you don't have to take the nuts completely off and chance losing them. The only one you have to pull all the way off is the first one because it's got the power lead on it. So I got those off. I got my multimeter out here. I got it set to ohms. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you get a good ground before you start testing them. Otherwise you'll get just this one here and it won't ever change. So there's plenty of spots on this engine to ground, so I'll just find one of them. I'll set the camera down here and hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, so hopefully you can see I've got a good ground. Touch this first one here. Comes up 2.6. So what you want when you're testing them in spot is between 1 and 5. So 2.6 is good. 7.3. Try it again here. 7.3. So this number 2 one is bad. Number 3. 4.1. So it's at the higher end, but it's still within the 1 to 5, so it would be considered good. 2.4. 5.5, so a second bad one. And then the last one here, a 2.3. So it's looking like I've got two bad ones, this one here and this one here. And now I don't like just swapping out the individual ones. I like to try and keep everything uniform. because if one or two have gone out, the other ones can't be too far behind. So I'm going to just replace all 6 of them, and that way I know they're all good and that they should last for some time. So I'll get a wrench out and we'll see if we can get these out without breaking them off. Alright, so here's my new glow plugs. They have 2 part numbers on them. One of them's a GM number. It's 977-26786. And one of them's a link belt number, and it's 1-82513045-2. So I'm not surprised that there's a GM number on here. GM and Isuzu are somehow tied together. So I know that these engines here are used in a lot of Isuzu medium duty trucks. So GM and Isuzu have a partnership on that, and I'm not sure how else they're tied together, but it doesn't surprise me they've got 2 part numbers. So to get these little nuts was 8mm, bust those loose. The big ones are a 12. Now you can leave these nuts on because they're small enough that they'll go inside a 12mm socket. So I'm gonna just leave them on and try and bust them loose as is. I've heard several different ways of getting these out. You just want to be very careful that you don't put too much torque on them and break them off, because then it'll be a nightmare getting those out. I've heard of people putting penetrating oil down in here and letting it sit. Another way is to fire it up, let it warm up, and then try doing it as it cools down. I'm gonna just try doing this cold and dry and see what happens. If it gives me any problems, I'll try the penetrating oil first, and then if that doesn't work, I'll go to heating the engine up. But hopefully they'll come out as is, and this isn't a bad day for me. So I'll be right back. Well, I was worried about this. 9,000 hours is a long time for anything to be sitting in a block without being taken out at least once or twice. I put as much torque on those as I felt comfortable, and they didn't even hint at moving. So I'm going to get some penetrating oil, squirt down in here, let it soak for a while, and then come back and try it maybe this evening or something. And if that doesn't work, then I'll fire it up, let it warm up, and we'll try that. So it'll be a little bit, and I'll get back. We'll try it again. So it's the next day now. I put penetrating oil on these a couple times throughout the day yesterday, and thought they'd pop loose first thing this morning, and apparently they're in there tighter than I thought. So what I ended up doing was firing the machine up, letting it go through its warm-up cycle. So the engine was warm, not hot, and by golly, they popped right loose. So I've got them all loosened up here, and apparently what everybody was saying was warm stuff up and they should come loose was accurate. So I've got this one almost all the way out, so I'll give her some twists here. And this is one of the ones that was bad, or tested bad anyway. It's a little carboned up, but I'll get these all pulled, and I'm going to put some anti-seize on these new ones. Hopefully I don't have to do this ever again, but you never know. Maybe they'll come out a little easier with that on it. But I'll get that taken care of, and then I think I'll go in and throw it on the bench and test it that way, a little more accurate, just to see if it was truly bad. But I'll be right back. Okay, so I got those all installed and torqued down. They torque to 14 to 18 foot-pounds. So I put 15 in my torque wrench and calling it good at that. So the next thing is to put these power strips back on. And as you can see, they're slotted. So just lining them all up and getting them to go all on just like that. And then I'll put the other strip on, tighten those down, put the power supply back on this side. And I did keep one nut from the old ones so that when this goes on, I got a nut to tighten down on top of it. And then should be golden. I'll do another test with the new ones in here to see what the difference is when they test out, and then I'll take the old ones in and put them on a bench and show you what they test out. Alright, everything's put back together, snugged up good. And one thing that I wanted to point out is the number 2 and the number 5 cylinder are the ones that tested bad. And if you notice, the number 2 and the number 5 glow plug are all carboned up. So that's a kind of a telltale sign that they weren't functioning. They weren't getting hot enough to burn that carbon off like the rest. So I think we're on the right track here. I'll take those in and test them to make sure. But while I'm still out here, I'm going to put the multimeter on these and see how they test out with them in the machine. Now when they're in the machine, you get the range of 1 to 5 ohms, and that's basically because you're running the ground through the machine instead of just straight through the glow plug. So there's going to be a little wider range to play with, simply because you're ohming through the machine instead of just the glow plug. So I'll put the camera down here and see what it tests. We'll start back here at the number 6. 1.4. Next one, 1.6. 1.3. 1.1. 1.1 and 1.1. So those all test out good. So I'll run in and I'll show you how these old ones test. Well, I decided just to do them right out here on the machine instead of packing everything into the garage to show you. So I'll set the camera down and hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Basically, you take the one lead up against the top of your glow plug and put the other one on the body. And 2.7. 7.8. 3.2. 3.6. 7.7. 3.4. So again, with that test, it does show that the number 2 and the number 5 are bad. So I think we solved the glow plug issue with this machine, and it should run a little smoother when the temperatures drop. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.